wanted me on his show.
Oh, Rick is great.
Today, and I couldn't do that. So,
cool. All right, the team put me live without my okay. All right, cool. Well, good to see you guys. Pleasure to speak to you both, two of my favorite guests. And they're struggling to make sense of what's going on because obviously Putin just landed in China. That's very significant. But on the Iranian front, J.D. Vance said something really interesting. He said, I was reading it earlier, we have the opportunity here, I think, to reset the relationship that existed between Iran and the U.S. for 47 years. That's what Trump asked us to do, and that's what we're going to keep working on it. But it takes two to tango. We are not going to have a deal that allows the Iranians to have a nuclear weapon. But for me, I saw that as an indication that the U.S. is willing to give a lot of concessions to say something like, we want to reset the relationship with Iran after 47 years. So that was a positive piece of news. Then we have on the Israeli front, it's a whole different rhetoric. Khan News is saying that Israeli officials are refusing to comment publicly on the timing of a possible resumption of the war. They're preparing for a resumption of the war, saying that Washington and Tel Aviv are fully coordinated. They also said that the Israeli officials were caught surprised by the announcement of the ceasefire. And I-24 News just a few minutes ago said Israeli officials estimate Trump will eventually move forward with a strike on Iran, despite the mixed signals and public comments over the last 24 hours. So that's on the Israeli front, so a lot more negative than what J.D. Vance is saying. And Axios is, the mouthpiece. I don't know if it's worth reading what Axios has said, but it's along the same lines. Trump reportedly held a high-level meeting after the ceasefire announcement with his national security team to review the military options against Iran. So mixed messages, and it's not like mixed messages of bluffing. It does seem like strikes were imminent, at least that's how I feel. And Iran did give a pretty extreme warning a couple of days before that by striking the nuclear power plant in Iran. So I'd love to get your thoughts, Larry. What do you make of the last 48 hours?
It all hinges upon what Saudi Arabia says. So over the weekend, Pentagon issued what are called stop movement orders. So that's usually an indicator that we're going to go hot, that there are going to be airstrikes. However, they have not issued what are called ATOs. And I'm sure Karen remembers from her Air Force days, air tasking orders. It's only when you get the air tasking orders that you know that an attack is imminent. Now, why do I say it all hinges upon Saudi Arabia? We saw 2 weeks ago in the midst of Project Freedom that the Saudis closed that down because they said, no, you're not going to use our airfield to both to launch your KC-135s, and you're not going to be refueling over our airspace. And Trump called up Mohammed bin Salman and pleaded with, oh, please, come on. And Salman said, no, we're not doing that. Trump had to shut it down. Why are the Saudis doing that? Because behind the scenes, Russia, China are working on this new security architecture for the region. They're working through Pakistan. Pakistan does have a signed security treaty with the Saudis and just deployed, I think, 8,000 troops into Saudi Arabia. But what they're trying to do is wean the Saudis, Qataris off of the United States, convince them that, you're better off with us under this new security umbrella than you are with the United States. So that's why I say we'll know that the United States will launch new attacks on Iran if the Saudis and Qataris are willing to allow their territories to be used as launch pads or as air refueling stops. Right now, my understanding is most of the F-35As, the combat aircraft that are used, and the F-16s, those are all in Jordan or Israel. So their combat radius is about 500 miles. Well, to fly from, say, roughly Amman to Riyadh, that's over 800 miles. So you're going to have at least one air refueling to get them there. They're going to be able to get to the edge of the Persian Gulf, launch their Tomahawks or JASSMs. Those can go up to 500 miles and then turn around, get air refueled again, and then probably have to have a third air refueling to just get back to their base in Jordan or Israel, assuming they don't get shot down. So this is why I say the Saudi and Qataris, Kuwaitis, they're critical to this. If they decide, you know what, we're going to shut down air refueling in our airspace, the United States is screwed.
Yeah. What do you think, Karen?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I think maybe for the first time, some of these Gulf states that have hosted Americans for doing whatever we want to do, and being our lackeys, they're now in a situation where they can assert sovereignty, which is really a new concept for them, I think.
Yeah.
This is a new place for them, really. And if they're getting encouraged by Russia and China, which they are. I mean, Putin's been talking about sovereignty in every speech that he gives. It seems like he's pushing this concept. He's and China and Russia together, and many other countries, not just BRICS, but a lot of countries are saying we need a multipolar world for real, not just in words, but an actual world that is balanced against the United States, and not against the United States in a combative way, but just as an alternative. And that's a very appealing story for like 90% of the planet, right? I mean, between our population and Israel's population, you're talking 345 million people in a planet of 7 billion people.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like we run things. We think we do, but the world's ready for change, and this could be an amazing shift. We need it.
But do you think they have enough influence?
Well, I don't know. And also, if the United States is banned or subordinated to Gulf kingdoms and other countries like this, it's got to be seen as a loss for the United States, the military-industrial complex. It's got to be seen as a loss to Washington, D.C. So how do they spin that? I mean, I would think this makes Trump angry more than it makes him happy.
Yeah.
Even though it's going to save lives, because if we launch supposedly, supposed to be Wednesday, say it's a couple of days, the air tasking orders come out, this thing goes hot. People are going to die. Desalination plants are going to get blown up, as well as a bunch of other places. And really bad things are going to happen to the global economy. And we're going to waste what's left of our munitions. So that's not really a win. How does Trump spin this? I don't know.
What do you make of J.D. Vance's comment, Larry? It's one of optimism. Do you interpret it the same way I do, that he's saying the U.S. is willing to concede a lot if you guys just come to the negotiating table? It shows desperation, but in a good way, not desperation in a negative way. Like, hey, we might get a deal because the U.S. is willing to give up a lot here just to get something there to avoid war.
I'd rephrase it that J.D. Vance is willing to give up a lot, and but I'm not sure Trump is. Trump is too much hostage to the Zionist influence, and what might, depending on the outcome today of the election in Kentucky, because the Zionists have gone all in trying to defeat Thomas Massie. If they fail and Massie wins, that I think is going to have, it's like the effect of like an electric shock in the White House. Because Trump will realize that, okay, all this Zionist money, that does, this is not the same as defeating Senator Cassidy. Because Cassidy was not some lightning rod for the Jewish. If anything, he was somewhat of an ardent Zionist. So the fact that if Massie comes out of this on top, then it's going to send a powerful message. If Massie loses, then it's likely to lead Trump to start doubling down on stupidity. That he's going to be more obedient to the pleas for these attacks, because as I think you were noting earlier, the reportage out of Israel is very strident about it. We got to get the attacks going. We got to hit Iran now, et cetera, et cetera. And the fact of the matter is, Iran has used the intervening just now 7 weeks since the ceasefire was announced. They've used that time very much to their advantage, hardening sites, expanding production, replenishing armaments, and incorporating new air defense systems out of China and Russia. So they're in a much stronger position now to withstand a new onslaught. But more importantly, they are ready to really put a hurt. Now, this again comes back to the Saudis and the Qataris. They got to sit back and understand and calculate what's it worth. The original security architecture was the United States came in and said, hey, Trust us, man. We got your back. Here's the Patriot. Here's the PAC-3s. Here's the THAADs. They're not gonna lay a glove on you. I promise. And then you allow us these air operations, and in exchange, you buy our treasury bills, and then you buy our overpriced, expensive, crappy military equipment. That's the deal. That's the security package. This is like the Italian neighborhood boss, the mob boss that goes to the local pizza shop and says, "Hey, pay me the insurance premium for this month, and your shop won't burn down." So the pizza owner pays up, then the shop gets burned to the ground, and it goes to the mafia.
By the mafia guy,
Yeah.
by his family.
Yeah, so that's what happened. The United States promised all the security, and boy, the security didn't appear. They wiped out critical radars, $1 billion plus radar systems, at least 2 of those. Then there'll be 4 or 5 years trying to rebuild them if they can, because they need this little thing called rare earth minerals. That there is a country in the world, name escapes me at the moment, but they seem to hold a supply of a monopoly.
Refining capabilities. Yeah. By the way, I looked at as you mentioned, Massey, I was just looking at the betting platforms. There were 10 percentage point differences on the betting platform, 55 versus 45 odds of winning against Massey. Now it's back up to 60% Ed, 40% Massey. But I'm watching that so closely. Such a consequential election. I think it is, from a symbolic perspective, it's really important, even though it's just one member of Congress. But the fact that Massey is able to put up such a fight with such attacks from Hexeth and Trump, so many posts. Trump just posted again while you're speaking, Larry, about him. Not worth not reading, actually, just calling him a horrible congressman. Congressman.
But that right there tells you they're in trouble. Because if Trump thought they had this in the bag, he wouldn't be putting that out at all.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned to you, I know Ed. I've known Ed Gowron since, oh my God, 1997.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was a Navy SEAL. I first met him on a joint exercise that was done with JSOC in Jacksonville, Florida. And then later I ran into they called him Fast Eddie behind his back. He was not regarded as one of the intellectual superstars among the SEALs. I considered him a nice guy, but he was actually, I got along with him, but there were other members in the whole JSOC community that didn't. And normally that kind of guy that you don't get along with your peers sort of says something about
such a small world, isn't it?
Yeah, it's I don't mean to sound like like the where in the world is that I'm one of the guy. I'm Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. Yeah.
I'm at all these different sites, but it's like, I knew Gowron back. In fact, the last time I saw him, I was standing in line. It was in Panama. I was checking in to leave on a flight, and there he was with his family standing right in front of me, because the U.S. was pulling out its military people from Panama that had previously been based there. So he was getting on. As I recall, he had like 4 kids.
Well, he's the man going against Massey now.
He's not the man that Massey is, unfortunately.
Oh, what a great man Massey is! It's such a shame what's happening to him.
Well, do you believe the online betting platforms? Because I would want to look at the volume there, because when you think 20,
not much, only $3 million, only $3 million. So yeah, it's just an indication, but doesn't far
but
from.
But the AIPAC and the lobby, the Gowron lobby, the Israeli lobby, has put millions and millions of dollars. It wouldn't surprise me if they're not trying to shape the betting today and in the previous week, because it is something people look at and they go, oh, that's better than a poll. And in normal conditions, the online betting is much better than a poll.
Yeah.
It's actually, I think it's an accurate way of gauging.
Yeah, it's very limited volume. It could be manipulated.
But I wouldn't really trust that. I think there's too much money in this race. They could definitely shift that, because
it is very close. Massey, just 3 days ago, Massey was winning by about 10, 15, 20 percentage points. It was the complete opposite about 3, 4, 5 days ago. Before Trump, when Trump went on the attack, that's where it flipped. Either money is manipulating it, or people expect Trump's tweets to have an impact. What do you think, Karen, of Israel, though? Larry mentioned the statements coming out of Israel. You've always had concerns whenever we spoke that Israel could act unilaterally. Is that still a concern? Would they do it based on the behavior now?
Yeah, I mean, they'll do anything they can to try to get us to stay in the region. I mean, the best outcome of all of this is that the U.S. pulls out of the Gulf, changes its foreign policy in the region, lifts sanctions on Iran, gets a new JCPOA or something like that to kind of deal with the nuclear thing. That's the best possible thing for the world and for the United States and for Iran. That is the worst possible solution for Israel. They do not want that. They need top cover. They need the protection that we provide. They need the chaos that we contribute to in the region. So they don't want us running until they say we can go, and they haven't said we can go yet. They haven't said Trump can go yet. So yeah, what will they do? Well, there's many things they can do. They can do their false flags. They can influence Trump directly. They can tell Kushner to go make something happen. And there's a zillion ways. They have such visibility into our decision-making process because they're right in the middle of it. And I don't even think the outsider or the average American can have any concept of the kind of influence that they have. So that's why it's hard to figure the future.
Guess what happened? Came out today, Larry. You remember you told me we were talking about the UAE attack. I think you said it might be a false flag. Well, the UAE. So first, we know that Israel has 2 bases in Iraq. It was 1, now it's 2, and the UAE just confirmed that the drones did come out of Iraq. I'm not saying it was Israel.
Just a coincidence,
And that's the same day there's drones that went towards Saudi as well.
Yeah, not that Israel would have any incentive to try to make those the Saudis and UAE. I believe they're under attack from Iran in order to engender a desire in them to retaliate against Iran. No, that would never happen.
I still think it could have been Iran, and it might have had an impact on what's happening now. I really still think it's Iran sending a very clear warning to the US and Gulf, saying, guys, like, honestly, if you decide to strike us, remember, they were about to, according to Trump, they were about to. If you decide to strike us, all hell's going to break loose. And then 2 days later, Trump is like, I walked back imminent strikes. Maybe he did. Maybe he's actually saying at least partially saying the truth, that strikes were imminent. And maybe that attack by the Gulf did play a role in what he did next.
Well, I personally doubt that, for the simple reason that Iran has always been very clear about warning people, hey, if we're attacked, we're going to retaliate. But they've also been very careful not to initiate attacks, because once they do, they lose the moral and diplomatic high ground, because now all of a sudden they can be portrayed as the ones perpetrating the attacks, even when it's not true. I mean, notice one of the common memes over the last, 46 years is that Iran's the number 1 sponsor of terrorism, when in fact that's not true. But nonetheless, so any kind of support they provide to anybody that's engaged with any kind of terrorist attack just becomes, see, we told you, there's massive terrorist organizations.
Yeah. By the way, Vance also said he denied reports claiming that Trump would allow Russia to store Iran's enriched uranium. Remember how we discussed that as an option and how that's a preference for Iran? According to Vance, Trump has already dismissed that idea. As I said, it's never been part of our plan.
What plan?
Yeah.
What plan does Trump have? I wish he would share that a little bit in more detail, because I don't think he has a plan at all. I mean, he's boasting about, I don't read what they send me. I read the first sentence. I didn't like it. I threw it in the garbage. What kind of message does that send? And also, who is reading it? Half of his staff is hardcore Zionists. They're in the bag for Israel. They know Israel needs us there, and active and threatening Israel's enemies, and covering for Israel as they expand their country north, south, and east. Those are the people in Washington who are working for us. And then where's the new guy? Who are the replacements for Witkoff and Kushner? I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for the name of somebody I've never heard of before, but he's been struggling away in the State Department, or he's a former congressman who has lots of ties in the region, somebody with some credibility that Trump will put forward to actually negotiate. Yeah. Where's that guy? No, that guy doesn't exist. Okay. I mean, there's probably 100 of them in DC that could do it, but Trump doesn't know any of them, and Trump's advisors aren't digging them up. Even Rubio, who is trying to be a statesman, even though he's not up to the task. He's not involved in this. He hasn't said, oh, I've got a guy in INR. I've got a guy over here, former ambassador, knows all the players. Can you use him? Nobody's doing anything on our side that lends itself to the idea of diplomacy. The only guys doing it, the only non-military thing we're doing, which is also war, is the economic war led by Scott Bessent.
Yeah.
So what about that? I mean, we're not.
No.
We are not positioning ourselves to make this a win. I mean, honestly, if Trump had any sense, he wants wins. He's willing to lie to get them. I get that. I'm fine with that. He could, if he wants to lie his way into an American win that ends this war, I'm happy with that. He knows how to do it. But they're not positioning themselves at all towards that end. They apparently, Trump keeps talking about surrender, submission, obliteration of Iran. Scott Bessent says, "Oh yeah, we're gonna make sure there's nothing goes in and out of Iran. We're gonna seize up their financial system, whatever he thinks he can do." That's war talk. Everything is war talk, and no diplomacy talk.
Well, another big piece of news, I think, very consequential, was Putin landing in China. I think he's meeting Xi as we speak right now. How big of a deal is that? Do you think would have any influence on what's happening in Iran? Obviously, they're going to be discussing a lot more than just Iran. But do you think that meeting would have at least some impact on Iran? Because these are the two countries that are supporting Iran the most. Lara, we spoke about how China was potentially sending not only man-pads, but HQ-9A defense systems to Iran. That was a while ago. And Russia, through the Caspian Sea, has been supplying drones and components as well. What do you expect to see out of that meeting?
Well, I think actually the number one agenda item will be this new security architecture for the Persian Gulf. Russia and China have been coordinating closely on that. And again, we saw that 3 weeks, it started at 3 weeks ago, at least the public indication, when in the aftermath of the meeting with Araghchi in St. Petersburg, Putin spoke about the need for a new security architecture in the Persian Gulf. Then 1 week later, Wang Yi, Foreign Minister of China, meeting with Araghchi, talked about the new security architecture in the Persian Gulf. And then, since then, as I've spoken with you before, I have a source that's tied in closely with the government of Pakistan, and the Pakistani government is working in concert with, not independently, but in concert with, and sort of under the direction of the Chinese. They're the front guys. Chinese are playing behind the scenes, but all of this is to persuade the Saudis, Qataris, Bahrainis, Kuwaitis, Omanis, and ultimately UAE to distance themselves from the United States, come in under this new security architecture that will consist of Turkey, Saudi, and Iran. That's what they're working towards. I'm sure that will be the primary discussion because, it's not a need to beg. China doesn't need to beg Russia for more oil support. Russia's attitude is, hey, whatever you need, let us know. You got it. So the economic cooperation, I think what Putin and Xi are going to be talking about is more how to strengthen BRICS, because BRICS now remains a critical player in this. And both of them, in terms of, they've got developing an economic strategy. The pillar of U.S. global hegemony rests upon the two pillars. One is the petrodollar, the other is U.S. treasuries. So what we're seeing with the petrodollar is more countries are stopping to purchase oil with petrodollars using yuan and other currencies. So that trend is going in the wrong direction for the United States, right direction for BRICS. Similarly, holding U.S. treasury bills used to be a thing. China is now at its lowest level since pre-2008. Japan is dumping its treasuries. So across the board, the United States is now facing the difficulty of financing its continuing exploding deficit. Just under Trump right now, in his less than 16 months in office, has added almost $2 trillion to the U.S. national debt. So that's one other thing that China and Russia, I'm sure, are coordinating on, how to bring BRICS to a more stable and central position in the global economy. With the China system of SIPs, the cross-border interbank payment system, now replacing SWIFT, which is the European. It's sort of an analog technology. Chinese digital technology.
Mhm.
So those are, I think those will be two of the critical issues that they'll be discussing about the way forward. And normally in the past, Xi went out to meet Putin at the airport. This time he sent Wang Yi. But again, sending Wang Yi, that's high level. It's not.
But I think it's also not. I would go just not to embarrass Trump. That's not a good look. It's not. I think politically, diplomatically, it's not.
They don't care about
idea.
They don't care about it. They already embarrassed Trump. Trump just didn't realize he was being embarrassed. I mean, when she told Trump, "You're a declining empire," Trump goes, "Yeah, that's right. That Joe Biden, man, he really cocked things up."
Oh, yeah.
Dude, he's talking about you. He's not talking about Joe Biden. And the name they put on, the only way to get Marco Rubio into country was to quote change his name, how they wrote his name.
Yeah.
So the symbolism that they used to write his name was basically rude, obnoxious, vulgar. So Marco Rubio's walking around proudly with this name that basically is like saying, "Hey, I'm a dumbass" on it. So yeah, Trump came out of that with nothing more than he got a T-shirt, and that was about it.
The FT reported something that's going to make you very happy, Larry. They said she told Trump that Putin might end up regretting invading Ukraine, according to the Financial Times. Then Trump suggested US, China, and Russia should join forces against the International Criminal Court. But yeah, she told Trump that Putin's going to end up regretting the invasion of Ukraine.
I'm sure he told
I'd
go to the betting parlors with that. Again, just a load of crap. It's unbelievable. Trump lives in a fantasy world. And again, this is one of the symptoms of prefrontal lobe dementia, where you engage with what's called confabulation. You say things that you really believe are true, even though they are objectively not true. But it's not because you're lying. It's because you really believe it. And I'm sure Trump really believes that's what she said.
What do you think, Karen?
Well, Trump, another sign of dementia is a bad temper. And Trump definitely.
Do you also think he might have mental illness?
Look, he's 79. He's lived a hard life. He has a lot of rage. And, anger, just carrying anger with you all the time. This is not healthy. And with Trump, everybody's either a vassal or an enemy. So, that's a tough life. And he's lived that way his whole entire life. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he's got some problems. And the stress of being the president, even Biden felt the stress. And Biden clearly was demented. And he still was, I think, when he was lucid, he understood the weight of his job, the job that he had. So, yeah, and I don't have a lot of faith in Trump's mental health right now. I mean, I think he's, we did this when Biden we talked about, we did this armchair psychiatry or whatever, armchair diagnosis. So you don't really know. But Trump is, his hostility that he emanates pretty much in every single press opportunity that he has is not a good sign. And I'll tell you, we just watch him. I don't know. Larry may have sources. I don't have sources, but I just kind of watch him. But the other leaders of the world, they have great intelligence capabilities to find out everything that's going on. And so if Trump's actually is losing some of his mental acuity, they'll know it before we do, because I'm sure they've got tabs on every doctor that he's seen and all the people inside the White House. So they know. He may not be long. Maybe Vance will step in before the end of the term for some reason. Not Article 25 reason, but maybe, an Article 25 reason. Yeah. I mean, the president could, if his health deteriorates or he just wants to get out of this and still look good. But I don't know. I don't know about that future. But yeah, Trump is Trump's not. He's not doing anything to get us to where we need to be, and he's also not doing anything to demonstrate some sort of win that he can sell to Americans who want the win. I mean, a lot of people have left MAGA, or they don't follow Trump anymore. They're still America first. They just realized Trump was a liar when he talked about it. But those people and Democrats and everybody who doesn't even trust DC, everybody wants peace in the United States. We'd like our gas prices to go down. We would like to repair our bridges that have been sitting broken for years now. We want peace. We want the troops back home. All that MAGA storyline is very attractive to most Americans. Take Trump out of it, and it's popular. It's what we want. So Trump could sell us a win. All he has to do is put it together. He could tell us, "Oh, I bombed him." Who's over there to see if they bombed him? He could absolutely lie and do an AI generated of "We obliterated Iran. It's all over with. Troops are coming home. We're actually going to put America first." Everybody would buy it. We don't care. We would have the people that talk about the news we could entertain if it's real or not. The bulk of Americans could care less. They want this war over with. But Trump isn't even positioning himself for that type of a win. And I don't think he has the imagination for it. And he used to. He used to be quite imaginative. He used to be, this whole 5D chess thing, it doesn't exist. It's a joke. But back in the day, Trump promoted this concept about himself, and when he was sharp, when he had all of his faculties, and he was very competitive, and he did think of things to do that were different than what other people were doing. So, but he's lost that, I think. So we're stuck.
There's on the Iran front, and then we're going to move to the Russia front because there's a piece of news that just came in that's pretty concerning. On the Iran front, I'm still hopeful but extremely concerned. I still believe, Trump. I even have a feeling that Trump is really pissed off at Israel for getting him into this war that he's trying to get out of. And now he's in a position. So he got fooled by Israel dragging him into this war. Now he's in a position where Iran is not giving him enough ramp. But I hope, again, I'm being hopeful, and I've said this to both of you before, I hope that this is true, and I hope that this might, be the beginning of a turning point in U.S.-Israeli relations. But most people disagree with me. They think I'm being too naive. But there's something I'm more concerned about, and that's the Russian ambassador today, not long ago, told the United Nations, he told the Security Council that Ukraine is planning to launch drones at Russia from the 3 Baltic states. So that just came in today. And we've heard the rhetoric up, and we've talked about it. I think, Larry, we've talked about it. I haven't spoken to you about it yet, Karen. But we've talked about the developments in Russia that are not positive. The rhetoric about striking the NATO infrastructure that is helping Ukraine in this war effort, including factories and warehouses. And now we're seeing that, in a way, for the ambassador to say this, kind of setting the groundwork for potential Russian action or escalation when it comes to NATO, either direct or through asymmetric means, through sabotage. What do you make of that statement in the context of the recent developments, the strikes on Moscow, the attacks before that on Kiev, and the escalation we've seen?
Well, first let me comment that Aesop's fables are going to have to be updated. You remember, he started with the boy who cried wolf. Now it'll be the president who cried war, peace, war, because we've had now 11 separate instances since March of Donald Trump saying, we're going to attack Iran now any day. This is the red line. And then, never mind, we got pieces on the horizon and an agreement is near. And then the guys shorting the oil market and the stock market make a lot of money. And then, never mind, those Iranians are incorrigible. So he's done that now 11 times. And he may do it again. So it's just, this is a game he goes through because there's no seriousness to it. Now, with respect to what's
very lucrative to be Trump's friend right now.
Yeah, exactly right. Now, it is important that the West pay attention to what Ambassador Dmitry Polyansky said the other day on the Danny Davis show, and what Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Rybkov said within the last 2 days, or wrote. Now, I know Ambassador Polyansky, and also has spent a little bit of time with Ambassador Sergei Rybkov. And both men are saying the same damn thing. And it's basically this, that these continued attacks with Russia are going to lead to Russian retaliation against the Europeans. They are not playing. This is not an idle threat. And when you combine what they're saying and understand with, in particular, Dmitry Polyansky, he's not one to go freelance. He's not one to just say, I've been thinking about this and I'm going to say X, Y. No, He's following a script that's been provided by Sergei Lavrov and by Vladimir Putin, because whatever Lavrov is saying on this is coming from Putin. So there has now been a decided shift in the Russian policy. They are going to retaliate and hit targets in Europe. Mark my words. They're going to probably use the Oreshnik missiles, but they're not going to step back and allow this to continue. They will, I think, within the next month or two, launch attacks against Europe, particularly if these drone attacks continue as they are, and Europe makes no efforts to try to stop it. So that's, the world's on notice now, and they ought to pay. They damn well better be paying attention, because these guys are not joking, and this is not just idle talk. Russia's made it clear now, and we got another hint of this with Sergei Karaganov. Again, he's one of the leading political analysts in the country. He heads up the New School, which is sort of their version of Harvard now. And I'm fortunate. I also know Mr. Karaganov, and got to spend quite a bit of time with him over a 3-day period. He's not one to make idle threats, and they're talking about the realistic use of tactical nuclear weapons against military targets in Europe, because they are not playing around.
But why? If they just need to wait, as we've said before, for European leaders, for new leaders to take their position, like what we're seeing with the AfD in Germany, just wait for that to happen. Keep the US distracted and around. And if they're winning the war of attrition, why take a risk and escalate? It's because drones are using NATO airspace. I'm not saying NATO is the right thing, but is it really the right decision for Putin to escalate?
I learned an expression when I lived in Argentina. Se confunde el bueno con el buenudo. They confuse being good with being a fool. And the West has confused Russian patience with weakness. And as a result of that, they keep pushing the boundary. And Russia's now at the stage, there's no more pushing. There's no more Mr. Nice Guy, to quote Alice Cooper.
There is pressure in Russia that Putin has been soft and has not taken decisive action where it counts, because when you've got strikes deep into Russia that are blowing up refineries, hitting apartment buildings, different things like that, people have become very angry. This war has been costly to Russia, and I think Russia, in many ways, and Putin in particular, they don't want to destroy and flatten Kiev. This is a Russian city. In fact, Odessa, this is the Russian city. If you say Odessa, you think Russia. That's it. So they don't want to destroy Ukraine, and they've played maybe with velvet gloves, and yet this whole lie that it's just Ukraine against Russia. No, it's NATO and the United States against Russia.
Yeah.
And even when Trump was in Anchorage, we were providing surveillance and weaponry and training, and we had special forces inside Ukraine guiding and teaching guys. So the enemy is in Europe. And what better time to hit them hard, not just because of the pressure that the Russians have in over 4 years now of a very harrowing war for a good cause to protect Russians, but what better time to strike in Europe? Europe is an absolute mess. And all our troops are focused on Iran, and Iran has done a lot of favors to other countries that would like to attack America by decimating our supplies and exposing our weaknesses, particularly in our operations and our technology. We have not, it's just like people go to China and they see these cities and they go, oh my God, it's clean, it's modern, it's high tech, it's beautiful. And they go back to America and nothing works, and the roads are covered in potholes. Well, guess what? Our military reflects what America has become, and it's got a lot of potholes. It's got a lot of, duct tape holding things together. It's very expensive, but it doesn't really perform properly. And it's certainly not leading edge technology. So what better time to hit Europe? America is going to do nothing. We can't do anything. We couldn't respond. Unless they gamble that, the whole thing will go nuclear right away. And I don't think it will. I don't think our nuclear weapons are any more reliable than an F-35 is, honestly. So yeah, for Russia's perspective, this is a low risk thing because they know how to target specifically. That's another thing we've seen in how they've fought the Ukrainians. They have been extremely, there's not a lot of accidents. They target military targets, they hit them, they assess the damage, and they go on. So if they hit to the Baltic states, if they hit a factory somewhere that is producing stuff, they'll know it. It'll be correct. There'll be no argument, and they'll hit it, and they'll do minimal damage. So, what better time? I would, sometimes I hate to say this because I'm not a war fighter person, but it seems like maybe if the wars don't end, you have to end them. And if the people won't talk, which they won't, my God, Zelensky, can you negotiate with him? Can you negotiate with a drug addict? Can you negotiate with a vassal of a larger state that you also can't negotiate with? That would be the United States. So if negotiation is not an option and you're at war, why not finish it? And there's a way to finish it. And this is, again, the language that Israel uses with Iran. This is the language the Zionists in the White House use with Iran. Finish it. We must finish it. So I'm not advocating more fighting, but it makes sense to me that Russia would do that. And again, I don't know how in tune with reality the European leaders are. Obviously they're not in touch with their own people, which is why their populist parties are rising against them, and most of these guys are barely holding on to their seats. But maybe they have the Trump syndrome. They live in their own world. They think Europe, everybody wants to be a European. No, they don't. European cities are like Disney World for rich people. It's not a place you want to go to make your $1 million, to make your $1 billion. It's not a place of the future. The future is South and East. And, who can change that? Trump is we're living in an old empire that is in decline. And that's what it looks like. It looks exactly like what we're seeing today.
Trump just posted for the first time on Twitter, on X, for the first time in months, I think in a couple of months. Yeah, he posted about Thomas Massey. He said the following: horrible Congressman Massey put out an old endorsement from many years ago of him by me long before I found out that he was the worst congressman in the history of our country. I endorsed Ed Gallerine, a true American patriot, which Massey knows full well. So the statement that he put out is fraudulent, just like he is fraudulent. Withdraw your fake statement now, Massey, President Trump. So that was the post by Trump.
Yeah. That means Massey's winning. Again, why? If Massey was losing, if they were crushing him, man, you wouldn't say a thing.
I think it's just very close. I think it's very close.
Just let him die. No, I think it's going to be much wider.
Check on there. I just use a bet. There's no polls yet. Use the betting platform. As a final question.
Let me just again ask a question. Go back and look on the night that Cassidy was losing in his primary for the Senate in Louisiana. I don't recall Trump doing a lot of tweets about that in the lead up. But
no, this one's very close, very, very close. It's been
sorry to interrupt.
No, I wasn't speaking. But so about when was it? May 15th. So what I know, 20th. 5 days ago, Massey was at 67% and Ed was at 34%. Mm-hmm. So it's a massive flip in the last 5 days since Trump and his team went on the attack. Final question, Larry, Karen, is putting all this together. I think the audience would love to hear your I want to say predictions, but with the information that we have today, Trump walking back his statements, or at least the planned attacks, Israeli media saying that the attacks are still likely, J.D. Vance saying we could reset the relationship with Iran, the Gulf, the UAE saying the attack came out of Iraq and did not explicitly blame Iran, but they did hint initially it was Iran. Trump naming Saudi, Qatar, and the UAE when he said that they convinced him to not go ahead with the war, among other countries. And also the reports that the Saudis trying to put a coalition together, a non-aggression pact between the countries in the region. If we put that together with the meeting now between Xi and we know the meeting between Trump and Xi, the meeting between Putin and Xi that is happening as we speak, and the very concerning developments up in Russia, Ukraine, along with the statement to the UN today. Where do you expect things to be near the end of the year, Larry? I know it's impossible to predict for sure, but based on the information we have now.
You mean end of the year? Or end of the week?
Year.
Oh, end of the year? Iran will still be in control of the Strait of Hormuz. The United States military presence will be effectively withdrawn, and there will be a new security architecture in place.
Karen?
Yeah, and I wrote an article about 4 weeks ago, and I said it was a prediction, long range prediction, and it included all those things. I think our troops are leaving. I think they're coming home. The security architecture is being built right now, and it looks like it's working. It looks like those countries realized they're in far more danger without being They need to be friends with Iran. They need to work with Iran to profit from an asset that they haven't really leveraged like they maybe should have. They've let the United States leverage it. And I'll add another one. I think, we've been stealing basically Iraqi oil since 2003, since June of 2003. All Iraqi oil sales go into a bank account in New York, and we dole it back to them as we see fit. That's why Trump said they couldn't elect the guy they wanted to elect. The parliament was told you cannot elect, I forget the guy, Larry knows him.
Yeah.
Served before as prime minister, but Trump said, no, you can't choose this guy. And they did not choose him. They chose a guy that Trump said, that's okay. That's because we steal the dollar. We denominate their oil sales in dollars, and we deposit it in a New York Federal Reserve Bank account that we control. We've been doing that since 2003. So that's going to end. I think that's going to end also, because you can have a security architecture that includes Iraq if you've got the U.S. right in the middle of their revenue system. So I would add that in there. And I think, and I've been saying this wrongly for 3 years now, I think the war in Ukraine will end. But I've been saying it.
I've been saying this as well for a while. Yeah. I think it's near ending. I know Larry's a lot more concerned than I. I think it's ending as well, but I'm always the optimist that ends up being wrong.
And I also think Trump. This is a crazy one, but I'm
laughing at Larry. What are you
no.
laughing at?
I'm just
Let me be optimistic.
I think Trump may, and it depends maybe if Massey wins or not. I don't know, but Trump he actually may have a medical reason to step down at some point. And you talked about Trump's really mad at Israel. You said Trump's really mad at Israel, which I imagine he is.
I hope so.
But you know what happens to many of our presidents in the past have been very angry at Israel, starting with Kennedy.
They don't do anything about it.
And what does it get you? It gets you either you obey or you get whacked, and or you get removed in some way. Being angry at Israel as a president is not enough. We need something. There's something else that will have to be done to really reset that relationship. And we'll have to do it. I think maybe we'll take some steps before December in resetting that relationship as well.
Well, Karen, Larry, it was an absolute pleasure to speak to you both. Thank you so much for jumping on, guys.
Always good. Love being with Karen. We'll see you all later. Bye.
See you guys.
See you later.
All right, guys. Two of the nicest people you can find on YouTube, two of the nicest analysts together. I hope you enjoyed the show. I'll be back live in exactly 6 minutes. Let me know what you thought of the conversation and of the format as well. And I'll be live in 6 minutes with a new guest. He'll be on the show for the first time to discuss not just one issue, all the issues combined, the meeting between Putin and Xi, the developers in Ukraine, and obviously the war in Iran, and that's Richard Medhurst. I'll see you guys in 5 minutes.